4. Wisdom preserves. Wisdom preserves those who have it. No one could have put up a stronger fight, Mark thought as he gazed at his wife's portrait in the front hall. How ironic life is. Melissa had flown through chemo, radiation and surgery. She arrived at the end of it with a cancer-free diagnosis that had Dr. Sheila Allen smiling from ear to ear. "You've been the ideal patient, Melissa," she told the jubilant couple. "Now I need you to check in with me every 6 months. We're just going to keep an eye on things. I don't get to pass out as much good news as I'd like. You've made my day. Go home and enjoy Christmas with your girls." Then as Mark and Melissa were returning from a New Year's celebration neither of them had wanted to attend, they had been broadsided by a drunk driver. It was as if their music should not last too long. When Mark stood at his wife's bedside he didn't even recognize the bundle of tubes and bandages lying there. "She's in a coma," Dr. Felston the neurologist had told Mark. "Sometimes people awaken from these things in a week, a month, years and resume their lives. But the EEG shows little to no brain activity. Machines are keeping Melissa alive. If, by some miracle, she should come out of this coma, she'd be a vegetable, Mark. It's not the way Melissa would want to exist." So the family had said their goodbyes to a heap of bandages, tubes, and machines they didn't even recognize and let Melissa sleep as the Bible calls death. Mark believed fervently they'd all be together again someday. Several well-meaning relatives had suggested that he pack the portrait away with Melissa's jewelry for her girls for later. But Mark couldn't do it. It was his lasting reminder of the vivacious redhead his energetic, fun-loving wife had been. Throughout the months of surgery and chemo, as he watched his wife literally wither before his eyes, he would look at the portrait and remember the happier times. In the 6 months since the funeral, Mark would actually talk to Melissa's portrait when there were tough decisions to be made. Her intelligent green eyes would look down from their frame and it was almost as if the portrait was talking to him, but of course, it was all in his mind. Mark's job and his girls had gotten him through the nightmare that was Melissa's last 10 months of life. He didn't have time to fall apart. People were depending on him. Henry had proved to be the trooper that Mark knew him to be. He moved in with them, and between him and the private nurses Mark had hired, Melissa got to spend her last days at home and as comfortable as possible. Henry had watched his daughter fight the same horrible illness that had taken his wife Patsy, who had departed 20 years before. He'd rejoiced with them when Melissa was declared cancer-free and then plummeted to despair when the drunk driver snatched his daughter's newfound life from them. What a horrendous experience, Mark thought. How brave and invincible that man had been to travel through that hell a second time. When the dust settled and grim reality set in, Henry had sat down with Mark and shared some experiences. "You've got 3 little girls to raise, Mark," he said. "I know you understand this in your head, but you have no idea the road you have ahead of you. I thought I knew what I had to do, but I had no idea. Like me, you've poured your time and energy into a fulfilling but demanding job and left the logistics of raising the kids to your wife. Sure, you attended birthday celebrations, soccer games, and parent-teacher interviews. But the day-to-day slugging was left to your wife." Mark nodded his agreement, feeling more lost and overwhelmed than he'd ever felt before. Henry continued, "Women will be swarming, Mark. They can't resist. You're young, fairly good-looking, a successful doctor, and available." When Mark started to protest, Henry held up his hand. "I know you aren't wife and mother shopping, Mark. I wasn't either. But that does little to deter the cougars once they smell blood. Andrea has already started to drop by with casseroles and offers to take my girls back to school shopping when she takes Cassie," Mark admitted. "To tell you the truth, I was mighty tempted to accept her offer. What do I know about back-to-school shopping? What do I know about raising girls, for that matter?" "Exactly, Mark," agreed Henry. "Now here's what we need to do. You need a live-in housekeeper/childcare worker. It's the only way you are going to stay sane. I tried stopgap stuff when Patsy died. Relatives and neighbors helped. It was hit and miss as no one person was in charge, and I always felt beholden. It was a disaster. I have no idea how poor Melissa survived until we found Miss Carey. I'm not sure my girls are up for this, Henry," Mark hedged. "Even if I were to stay, and I am happy to do this, you and I are no match for dealing with the girl issues that are soon going to arise. Jennifer will so be a teenager with all those hormonal issues, and Kelly keeps everything bottled up inside. Lisa follows any female around like a puppy because she misses her mother so much. We can't deal with any of those issues alone, Mark." Much as he hated to admit it, Henry's logic was sound. Running his hand through his dark, curly hair, Mark said, I have no idea how to find someone who fits this description, Henry. Leave it to me, Mark, said Henry. I am a bit of an expert on this. You won't believe the people I interviewed before I stumbled upon Miss Carey. You had a clear idea of what you needed, Henry, said Mark. It couldn't have been that bad. Trust me, affirmed Henry, it was that bad. One woman came to the interview on her motorcycle, complete with Hell's Angel leathers. Let me talk to the girls first, said Mark. Take your time, Henry said. Just remember the cougars are circling. Mark shuddered.